night is different than most of our other nights. What we're really going to talk about tonight, it's really a life skill. It's a life skill where we're thinking about our wants versus our needs and how we plan for that throughout our lives. And beginning that planning process now, because our faith and our church, it extends much deeper than just in the pews. It extends to every part of your life, particularly your finances. We have to live a life of virtue, live a virtuous life. Not just being good, but being holy in all that we do. And when we practice virtue, and we make it a habit and way that we live every single day, that we practice virtue, we really help eliminate falling into pitfalls later on in life. We can find that through living out the virtues, being rooted in Christ in that. So 2 virtues we're going to talk about tonight, particularly are prudence and temperance. Prudence is the ability to govern or discipline yourself by the use of your reason. And temperance is moderation and voluntary self-restraint. Basically being in control of your choices. So something that I see that harms a lot of families, most arguments are about finances. And people mismanaging their money and then running up the credit card debt or being kicked out of their apartment or not being able to pay for certain things. So we think about these things like, well, maybe that's something my parents should talk about or worry about, or maybe after college I need to think about it. But now, if we could practice this now, practice these virtues with our own finances now, we set ourselves up for excellence in the future. How many of you have a job right now? You're working. Okay, good, hands down. How many of you get like an allowance, or every weekend your parents give you some money? So Sam works and he gets an allowance. All right, very good. How many of you beg on the street and get a little bit of some money? All right. So there's some money that comes into your pocket, and everything that comes in, you need to be responsible for. Or Jesus talks about that those who can be trusted with small matters can be trusted with large matters. And now that you might have a little income, and if you can learn how to control that little income now, later, whenever your income rises and multiplies, then you're set to be prepared to handle that then. That money, if we continue to make that our number one priority and our goal to bring in as much of it as we can. And what I mean by that is not just trying to mess somebody over or just hold on to every penny that you have, but I mean by the decisions that you make. That if your decisions that you make every day are seeking that next dollar, or trying to live your life for that next paycheck, avoiding certain things that are the real needs of family and church life to go pursue that extra dollar. That if we continue to do that, that we need to know that that is not going to satisfy us. That God alone satisfies. The challenge for our life is to know that it's Him who satisfies us, nothing else. We're going to have that continuous battle throughout our entire life. But everything that we have comes from Him, so that everything maybe we should do with it should glorify Him. So there's this thing that I don't know if anybody knows much about. It's called tithing. Who knows the word tithe or tithing? So it comes from the word meaning like 1/10. 1/10, tithe, to give a tenth. And in the Old Testament, we see that the people would either raise crops or raise animals, and they would take their best, tenth of their best, and offer it back to God. But we, as a tithe, are called to set aside 10% and give it to the church. So I told someone earlier that if you got a paycheck and on your paycheck it says $192.80, what amount does that mean 10% is? $19.28. You just move the decimal one spot, okay? Christians are expected to give 1/10 of our tithe to support the need of the church and the ministry. Put a little money in the plate, in the collection basket. Maybe it's because that you think something your parents should do or your grandparents should do, aunts and uncles, and not you. But if you're having something come in and showing that gratitude and giving it back to God, we can give that 1/10 back. So I want to challenge you to not let that plate pass you. Now, I was talking to someone about that earlier, and they said, well, I'll give, if I feel good, I'll give them a 20, but sometimes I just throw in a 5, okay? Depends on how I feel that day. And because they're grateful for something that they see the church do, that we do out in the community, or whatever. So, oh yeah, the church did that, so I'll respond and do this. But $5 means that you made 50 that week, right? So whatever it is for you, you want to plan that 10%. And it's not always easy. It's not always easy to trust God with that. I know that, like, for me, we really struggle with that sometimes for a long time. And so we end up taking a very significant hit where basically the money that we were bringing in when we moved here in 2012 almost got cut in half from 2017. And we really were struggling with, like, do we even have that 10% to give back? That we have to choose to do it. We have to choose. Because it's not easy. Especially whenever you make a certain amount of money and it comes into your house and then half of it disappears. Like, I don't have that extra anymore. And if we have this idea of extra, that we're giving out of just our extra, that's not really the right mindset, the right idea. That we give it out whatever we have. We hear the scripture story about the old woman who just gives her 2 cents, her 2 pennies, her 2 little coins. And then Jesus says that she gave more because she gave everything. So money is necessary, that we receive and we return. But also you need to think about, like, how do we do that? How do we plan? That we need things, right? So we need money for things. You need a car, you need gas. You need certain things to kind of live here in this world. You need food. You need what? Deodorant? Yes, please wear deodorant. It's necessary. But how do you plan for these things? You have to set a budget. And then here's something that you really want, but it's expensive and you need to save for it. We come across a lot of that with, like, the retreat. Oh, the retreat costs, $150, and I don't have that right now. Well, we're in the early part of October, so October to November, November to December, December to January, so we're 3.5 months away. So we start doing some quick math. 150 divided by 3, that's $50. It's $50 a month. Divide that by 4. It's like $12 a week. So now we got to start planning. Okay, if I'm going to pay for it, and I know that in January I'm going to owe $150. Now it's October. If I can just save back $12 a week and put it in an envelope, $12 next week, $12 next week, $12. By the time January rolls around, what do you have? You have the money because you set a budget, you planned for it. So we plan for it, we write it out, and we follow it. And tonight before you go home, we're going to give you these little envelopes, and they're tithe envelopes. We have these tithe envelopes that we want you to practice with. You can do it if you get paid every week, every 2 weeks, every month, whatever. And I want you to bring them. I want you to go ahead and figure out what your number is and practice putting it in. We're going to do that for over the next month or so. For the next month, 10%. Then I want to encourage you to then make it a regular practice in your life to then do it every week or every 2 weeks or however often you get paid, and do it at church. Put it in the basket. I remember, like, when I turned 18, I just hit a ton of credit card things in my mailbox. Boom, boom, boom. So you got credit card debt, you got student loans, you got cars that you're trying to pay for. You got a lot of things that start adding up. So I just wanted you to be aware of the dangers of debt. Because whenever you start borrowing money to pay for things, they're not doing it for free. They have interest on there, and that interest adds up quickly. So if you buy $200 worth of clothes, and there's 18% interest on your credit card, and you just make the minimum payment, and you just continue to do that for the next couple of years because it will spread out, you'll end up paying almost $300 for those clothes. That even goes up more. I remember whenever I was in business school, and they talked about what a mortgage would look like on a $120,000 house. That if you paid it out the length of the 30-year note, you'd pay over $400,000 for the house. 3 times more than, 3.5 times more than what you were planning on. Because of the way the interest adds up. You would need to take out a loan and accrue some debt and interest if that's something that you feel that you're called to do at the time. Student loans, a house, maybe a car, but beware on the little things. Just because you want the newest pair of Jordans doesn't mean you need to go slide a credit card for them. So just be aware, be prudent whenever you decide what you will and will not spend your money on. Save up your money. If you really want something, like you want the new iPhone X or 10, whatever they're calling it. If you really want that iPhone, figure out, okay, how much can I pay, like save for it, and pay for it in cash. So begin to budget the things that you need. The book of Proverbs tells us that the borrower becomes a slave to the lender. This is your first step into adulting, by setting and living by a budget. Take what we receive, give back to the Lord as an offering, cover your needs, budget for some wants, use what God has given you to serve others. There's no need to save, but instead I want to challenge you to serve, serve, serve.